and we can get started. Thanks again for being here. So nice to see you.
You too. It's funny. I was just I was talking to my students at Bard yesterday, and I was they have to introduce each other in their final quiz at the end of the semester, and I was just telling them, I was like, you know, there's really no correct thing to do with your face when someone's reading your bio. So I feel like if we could all just kind of collectively decide on like an action or like a, you know, I wish you could just sort of like exit or, you know, exit screen, exit stage. That would be great. But yeah, we kind of just have to like sit there. I haven't figured it out yet. So if anyone has tips, put them in the chat.
Yeah, you did great. So I just wanted to start, maybe for people who I said who are maybe new to your practice, if you can sort of start just by telling us about your practice in general, the interests that sort of weave through your work.
Yeah, for sure. My practice in general is, I think, one of obsession with objects. I think, you know, I once heard, I don't love Jerry Saltz, just to sort of put it out there, but I did hear him say something funny once, which was that artists are just kind of people who are obsessive about something and then figure out a way to, you know, make it work. And he called Cindy Sherman an obsessive shopper. And I don't know, I feel like I am somebody who spends a lot of time shopping and looking at objects and collecting objects. As you can probably see, my studio's full of them. So I think for me, my practice is about being an obsessive looker and wanter. Like I just want things when I see them. So I think that, you know, if I were to psychoanalyze myself, I think it has something to do with just wanting to be reminded of a particular kind of identity and a particular set of values. And, you know, I think having grown up in a country that developed very fast, my relationship to shopping and capitalism as it is sort of, you know, indecipherable from national identity and growth, you know, it's definitely something that's always on the back of my mind. So yeah, so I'm a shopper. I spend a lot of time online. I feel like I'm just a teenager who figured out how to make art.
That's a great way to start. I mean, I have a few questions I wanted to ask you, but maybe based on what you just said, maybe I'll just jump ahead to a question that I had around commodification. And you've said before that you're interested in sort of the commodification of culture, and more specifically, maybe the government branding of culture in the Emirates. But I think also generally you're thinking about it as well. So maybe you can talk about that a bit.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I started thinking about it when a couple of years ago, the Emirates started this branding campaign where they would brand certain, like every year has like a brand attached to it. So a couple of years ago, it was like the year of happiness. And then there's a logo for that. And so everything that you see that year is the year of happiness, right? There's kind of like advertisements for it everywhere. And there's like campaigns that promote that message. The year after, I think, was like the year of tolerance, which is about religious tolerance. And so the Pope was invited for an official visit, and there were all of these kind of events and, you know, campaigns to promote religious tolerance. And then the year after was the year of Zayed, who was our first president, who passed away a couple of years ago. And it was the, I believe, 100th anniversary. It was like, it would have been his 100th birthday. So it was the year of Zayed, and there was a logo for that. This year is going to be the Emirates' 50th birthday, which is a really big deal. So this is like the year of the, I think 50th is like a silver anniversary. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But so this is like the year of that. So I became just really interested in who gets to sort of decide what culture is and how it becomes this top-down operation that gets reinforced in different ways, you know, throughout everyday life. And I think another function of growing up somewhere that had to decide its identity super quickly, like we used to have all of these festivals growing up that were about culture, heritage, tradition, all of these sort of buzzwords that don't really make a lot of sense. I mean, they do, but they are also kind of vacuous because they just like, they're meant to contain everything. And so it would always be like, you know, you would go to this cultural festival, it'd be the same thing. It would be like older women wearing burqas, which are the face coverings, like, you know, making straw baskets and then like doing henna, and then, you know, men with falcons or like playing the rabab, which is this like the string instrument. But it was like, why does culture only get to be these things, you know? And why are we fetishizing a certain part of our past and kind of, you know, eschewing others? Like, we don't really talk about Bedouin culture. We don't really talk about, you know, fishery that much. So I just started to become curious about what the word culture means, you know, and kind of thinking about Stuart Hall and a couple of other people who have thought about that, you know, that word. Yeah.
And how do you think, you know, in terms of, as you said, just trying to, the Emirates trying to develop an identity really quickly. And I think this gets to the content of your work too, and what you choose to photograph. But I'm curious about the relationship between commodification and capitalism in the Emirates and the West, and sort of the relationship of Western infrastructures or imagery to sort of bridge local culture and this like global idea of the Emirates.
You know, I mean, I think it always comes back to money and politics. When you think about the very first franchises that existed in that part of the world, a lot of them were products of the first Gulf War. So a lot of troops were stationed around the Gulf and had cravings for Hardee's, which is Carl's Jr. in some parts of the US, or McDonald's or whatever. And so franchises of these places opened up to then serve them or the British expats who were coming in and working for the oil companies and things like that. So it sort of began immediately with this outward facing, I don't know, like franchise empire. And then as we grew, it became more pertinent that the Emirates become this hub for trade in, you know, Central Asia. So it became important to then, I don't know, to have different aspects of Western capitalism represented, you know, within our culture. And one of the major things that happened when I was growing up was our week was, oh my God, I don't even remember anymore. Our week was Saturday through Friday, right? Yeah. Wait, no, sorry. Yes. So we would go to school or work from Saturday through Wednesday. And then, because the Sabbath prayer is Friday. So Thursday was like our Saturday and Friday was our Sunday. And then when I was maybe 12 or 13, they changed it. So now it's actually Sunday through Thursday, so that we would have one more business day in common with the Western world. And it was such a weird shift of time where it's like, oh, this huge thing that we're doing that, you know, whatever, time is a construct, but this is basically, the reason for this is money. So it was interesting to just feel that trickle down effect, you know, and then as Dubai and the Emirates at large started to spring back after the recession of 2008, all of a sudden you started to see Shake Shack, IHOP, Johnny Rockets, Texas, what is it, the Texas Roadhouse, or like whatever, all these, you know, all these things that are like more variety. Yeah, so in my mind, I always think about fast food when I think about that relationship, like choices in fast food. We've always had KFC. We love KFC.
Yeah, that's a really good example, actually, just thinking about even the shift in the days of the week, the calendar sort of shifting to match the West is a really interesting example. I was wondering, did you want to, I could put on some images of your work, or did you want to show some of the things in your studio to start? How did you want to?
Yeah, whatever. We could, what does the audience want? I don't know, the chat.
We can do both eventually.
We can do both. I'm happy to do like a little studio tour while it's neat-ish.
Why don't I put some images up so that for people who, I mean, a lot of people won't have seen the show, so.
Yeah, sounds like a good tour. So let's do maybe like 10 minutes of the images, and then I'll give you guys a little studio tour.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. So let me just, great. So it's a good, I guess now it's a good time to talk about your images then. So formally, I actually really love, maybe I'll go into a more detailed shot. Your references to commercial photography, journalistic editorial photography, and fine art photography. It's such a difficult balance in my mind, and you do it really well. So I was wondering if you could give us some insight into how you have developed this visual language, and maybe, you know, break down how you make these formal decisions.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's a question I often ask myself, because I think so much of the time there's this sort of delicate balance between intuition and intent. And I think a lot of the time it goes back to this idea of being a compulsive shopper and a desirer of objects. I feel like my impulse most of the time is to render things in such a way that you want them, or you want to eat them, or you want to, you know, step inside the portal of the photograph and belong to that world where aesthetics matter and mean something. So, you know, I think they're usually my response to something photographically, when I'm like actually using the camera as a tool, I want it to look as good as it can possibly look. And, you know, that happens with lighting, that happens with color. But honestly, most of the time, you know, I think color is one thing that I get asked about a lot. And it's not, I mean, it's not as intentional as one might think. I mean, I just feel like I was dropped into this world of, you know, just incredible fluorescent color. And it's something that I'm very lucky for, you know, but a lot of my community, you know, are artists. A lot of my family are just people who, you know, who have particular tastes in home decor that are reflected in my work. You know, not going to make a judgment call or you know, of what that means, but yeah, I mean, like, this is one of my best friends, Anud, who's an incredible artist. And we were at our friend's house, and she just was kind of just reclining, and there's this Mickey Mouse fabric, you know, and I just feel like there's a real vibrancy, there's a real, I don't know, I think like people care about how their homes reflect themselves. You know, they want to be surrounded by color most of the time. And one of the things that I often try and I present as maybe like an opposite to this is like Brooklyn minimalism, which is the kind of decor that involves like brushed concrete floors, you know, like faux industrial, I don't know, fixtures. It's like all about how little you can do. And I'm the opposite. I want to do everything all at once.
So in the exhibition, you sort of have portraits, but also photographs of domestic spaces, which you're touching on here. So it's both, you know, sort of indoor and outdoor. I was wondering if you could talk about what the domestic space means in your work.
It means everything. You know, it's, for so many of us growing up in the Emirates in the 90s, it was our universes. You know, there wasn't really a lot of places that you could go. It's not the kind of place that is conducive to playing in the street. You know, it's an extremely private society. All homes have walls around them. If you are going anywhere, you're going to your friend's house, especially if you're a young woman. And, you know, I think this is true of a lot of countries. I'm not singling out the UAE in this way, but I think, you know, a lot of young Emirati women, you know, just have limited access to public space because of the sort of just social expectations of that society at that time. So your friend's house or your house, that's where you do everything. That has to be your universe where anything is possible. You have to figure out how to explode, you know, with possibilities within that often limited space. So I think that for me, most of the photographs happen in my friends' houses or in my house. And, it does, I hope, embody that spirit of doing a lot with what you have.
Mm-hmm. And how, within the domestic spaces, how does, you touched on it a little bit, but about design, but I'm also curious about decoration and how decoration or decor that's selected factors into both personal and national identity. And one example that I was thinking of is last time we spoke, you mentioned, seeing a rose in a bedroom would actually be quite a charged thing to see. Whereas, someone with a Western eye could look at that and sort of overlook it quite quickly.
Oh, I don't know if I said a rose. I think I meant like a man, because I think we're talking about the photograph of Tate, which is a guy with a guy sitting in bed with a shadow of a rose.
Oh,
that was kind of charged because this idea of like me being in a man's bedroom, there's these sort of just like, I think, separations between genders that happen. Like I used to teach college there, and I would teach at the women's college and the men's college, and they were like 45 minutes apart. So I think the idea of like being in a man's intimate space, a man who is not related to me, I think that has a certain weight there that it wouldn't necessarily hear.
Mm-hmm. And then in terms of the portraits, I guess I think of this one as like sort of a combination of a portrait and a domestic interior. I remember you saying that your interest in portraits is like rooted in a sort of interest in the quiet, everyday progressiveness of women, and maybe this being a progressiveness without an agenda.
Yeah.
And I was wondering how you sort of choose your subjects and how you decide to portray them. You sort of explain that with this work, but maybe more generally.
Yeah, they're mostly people that I know. I think when I talk about gender, or women being part of a national agenda, there's a couple things that I'm thinking about in particular that, again, are not limited to the Emirates or to that part of the world. But I often think about how women are implied in narratives about progress. And I remember a couple of years ago, there was this study done that revealed that women in the UAE had a very high progressiveness or gender equality index based on the percentage of women who held government positions. But what does that actually tell you about a place? What does that actually say about, the kind of more, I don't know, personal everyday rights that women have? Because you're talking about a place where, in order to remarry as a woman, you need permission from your son, husband, or brother. There's still this extremely tight hold of the Islamic patriarchy that exists all around the Middle East. And I think there's also, that's something that's been echoed in the US over the past couple of years. I think it's definitely come to light, especially when the language around Hillary Clinton's campaign being particularly about her gender was so interesting to me. This idea that a country that supposedly also has, all of these rights that women elsewhere are not granted, but still has never had a woman president in all of this time. The idea that it would be so revolutionary that it could be the pinnacle of her campaign, the absolute kind of backbone. So it just got me interested in the way that gender is weaponized outside of personal will. And I think for me, I just, I want to photograph my friends who are complex individuals who have varied levels of autonomy in their lives. And, so we spend time together and we talk and we make work.
Thank you. That's beautiful. I wanted to also ask, I'm going to move to this one. I was curious about precarity and how precarity factors in your photographs. You know, sort of these moments that people maybe don't normally look at, or that you would quickly overlook. I see that in something like this, and I think that's something that's interesting to you in your own practice. So I was wondering if you could talk about how that fits in maybe with these works.
I don't know. I think a lot of it comes back to this Susan Sontag quote that I always repeat, where she talks about the importance of paying attention and how, you know, what makes a good photographer is somebody who's just willing to pay very close attention to the world. And I think there's no such thing as a true, you know, totally objective image. There's no such thing as a universal truth. But I think that I get closer to it when I look at things that feel precarious or feel, I don't know, fluid in nature. You know, like that rose it wouldn't be there the next day because the cucumbers would be withered, the carrots would probably start to brown. So I just like that simple gesture of saying, come to my fast food place. Look what I can do. It's not, your food's not going to come with a carrot rose, but there's something about it that says, I tried today. Like I want you to see this, and I want you to come and witness it. And for me, it's looking at the things that might not be there the next day, or just, you know, really getting close to things. And I mean, I'm somebody who spends so much time on Instagram, and I lie to myself and say that it's research, but who's to say it's not? You know, it could still be research.
I mean, definitely, yeah. And then I'm interested also in how you speak about access and escape as two things that are sort of tied together. For example, in the references to anime in your photographs, I was wondering if you can talk a bit about how anime relates to escape in the context of your works.
Well, if anyone's seen an anime, the way that the world is rendered, I'm not like texting, I'm trying to pull up a picture for you. The way that the world is rendered is so beautiful, so beautiful. And none of it is based off of an actual place. I mean, there are, or maybe they are, but I think that there's a way that animation idealizes the world in this really, really naive sense that is so appealing to me, because I feel like that's kind of how I see the world and how I want it to be seen. Mm-hmm. So with Lady Lady specifically, it is this anime. Oh, I don't even know why I'm playing with a picture. It's my phone background.
Oh,
wait, I can't see myself. Hold on. I just want to make sure I'm showing you the right. Oh, I don't know where I am, but yeah, it's basically my phone screen. And so I feel like it's great because it's about this little girl who grows up in Japan, and she has this father that she finds out about who lives in a castle in Britain, and he's like a baron, and she goes to live with him, and she learns how to be a lady, but she's traversing these two cultures and like figuring out what it means to be like a, you know, her whole, this is so sad actually, but her whole goal in life is to become a real lady. And it's like all her parents want for her. And, you know, and so the episodes are kind of about like this journey that she takes to becoming a real lady. You know, and it's this like it's like this blonde character, even though it's a Japanese cartoon, and then it was translated into Arabic and aired all over the Gulf, you know, who's trying to assimilate into British culture. So there's something about that idea that like, you know, within this character's life where she's trying to belong to two cultures, she's actually very clearly prioritizing one. And so this cultural hegemony bleeds into, you know, into things as innocent and sweet and impressionable as animes. So I don't know. I think like that's where escape comes into play. It's like both desirable and also kind of poisonous. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think about Lady Lady a lot.
I'm also going to ask about in the exhibition at Cooper Cole, you've included both your framed photographs and the sort of vinyl wallpaper. And I was looking for this portrait. Is sort of more of a formal question, but I was wondering if you could speak about the wallpaper and its relationship to the framed works. What made you, make this choice in media?
Yeah, I often work with the wallpapers, and I think it's for a couple of reasons. I mean, I think it sort of reinforces this idea of escape and cultural portals or murkiness. And I think it also just echoes a formal quality of the world that I'm familiar with, which is like constant construction hoarding or like renderings of future buildings, or you go to a shopping mall and then it's like coming soon, Dolce & Gabbana or whatever. So this is literally the material that is used in advertising and in construction. It's this, non-reflective adhesive vinyl. And so I'm trying to use this thing that is already so linked with aspiration and futurity, and bring it into the gallery space and saying, this is actually it. Nothing's gonna be here. This is what you get. And layering that with the images to, again, kind of create this multi-layered, over aestheticized world. I'm trying to find you. I had a great picture of, I had a lady coloring book when I was a kid.
Uh-oh.
And I was looking through it recently, and I only just realized how kind of messed up some of the text is. But it says stuff like, need to have a talk with the adults. Like wearing my new dress, picking some nectar from the flowers. But some of it is just like really, it's like a twisted idea of what femininity should be and what youth should be. And I mean, TV is great at that, but hold on, I really want to find it, but we can keep talking until I do.
So I'll ask then also about your video work, King of Joy, which is actually on Cooper Cole's website now for people who want to be able to view it. It's also in the exhibition. So in it, you're in it and you're dressed like a clown and performing sort of a range of emotions. So I was wondering if you could talk about this work. I remember you were pretty keen to incorporate it into the exhibition. So I'm just curious about, the concept, but also how it ties into the photographs.
Yeah, so King of Joy is, I'm giving up. King of Joy is, maybe didn't make it in the book after all, and I forgot. I have selective amnesia. It's a 10-minute piano performance, and I am dressed as a clown in a clown outfit that I bought from this mall called Dragon Mart, which is the biggest collection of Chinese goods outside of China, and it's also a free zone, so it like operates as its own kind of universe with its own set of rules, like right on the outskirts of Dubai. So I went to Dragon Mart. They're known for these, like for selling like fakes of things, so you can get like a Gucci handbag or whatever, anything. It's like Canal Street in New York. You can just buy well-made fakes. And so I buy this clown costume from there, and I just wanted to think about the clown as this, exaggeration and mime of human emotion, and how it's such a dark thing that they have a smile painted on permanently. It made me think of this this joke from, I don't know if that's actually from the Watchmen comic or if they just mention in it the Alan Moore book that's now a series, but it's about Pagliacci the clown and how there's a guy that goes to a psychiatrist and says, "Doc, you gotta help me. I'm so depressed. I can't stop crying. Everything's miserable." And the doctor says, "Don't worry about it. I got the thing for you. Pagliacci the clown is in town for one night only. Go see him. He'll put a smile on your face." And the guy just gets sadder and sadder and sadder. And he goes, "But Doc, I am Pagliacci the clown." And it's like, it's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Because it's like, of course the clown would be the most depressed, because he's the most adept at putting on a happy face. So there's this real darkness to the idea of like a manufactured happiness. And this was actually the year that the Joker came out, even though I hadn't seen it at the time of making this film. So so I sat down at a piano, and it was kind of scary because, you know, most of the time I think I hide behind a veil of editing. But it was just really simple. And so I've been playing piano since I was a kid. And so it's just an improvised piece. And in the beginning, I'm thinking, how do I match up my gestures and my facial expressions with the music? So there's this kind of like theatricality that happens, but then eventually it melts away. And I think that there's like a real expression. And I intended for people to really spend time with it and try and figure out if they could pinpoint what moments were mimed and what moments were genuine. And I don't think it matters in the end if you get it right or not, but it's about the journey.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna leave the share screen. So maybe, yeah, maybe you can show us around your studio a little bit. I also want to encourage people to ask questions in the chat. It's a good time to start taking people's questions. But yeah, it would be great to see, you know, what you're working on, what you're looking at right now.
I'm doing a lot of teaching right now, so it's not like high exhibition time, but this is my desk. It's a little messy. That's a yoga puppy calendar from last year that I haven't changed yet. That is my dog, Cleopatra. She's hi Cleo. She's oh, there she is. Hello. Worst assistant I've ever had. Okay, so this is the windows, which is really a luxury. I never had windows until the summer. There's a truck depot right outside the windows. This is my printer, which I bought with the Artadia award money, which has been a huge help just to have access to a printer that will let me have control over my prints and also really, you know, play with rephotography and things like that. Here is one of the proofs that I did for our show. Da-da-da-da.
Oh, wow. And do you have it, is that vinyl?
No, this is just photo paper. This is
it's just into the wall. Yeah.
Yeah, what else? Just some more kind of experiments happening on the wall. I collect a lot of photographs of SpongeBob cakes. I also sew, so that pillow down there, that's like a quilted pillow that I made for Cleo. And I got
I was going to ask if you work with textiles at all. I was curious about that.
I do it, I mean, for fun. I learned for fun, but I've been doing it more and more as a sort of obsession. I used to make dolls. My dog actually ruined this one, but I work with a lot of like, this like blanket material that everyone loves, the polyester blankets. So she destroyed it, but I made this out of material.
And do you take most of your photographs in the Emirates, or how do you sort of, I guess I'm curious about just like location, because you do live between two cities, how you sort of conceptualize that in your work?
I think I work everywhere, really. I mean, some of the work in the show is from Dearborn, Michigan. Sometimes I work in my studio. I'm trying to work in the Emirates less and less because I don't want the work to be limited to there. But I will say it's easiest for me to take photographs there just because I am familiar with it as a place. So I feel like I can really pay attention to things that may be invisible to other people. And I like that. I like that it's about my relationship to the place where I grew up. Because I still feel in New York, I've been here for years, but I still feel like a tourist. It's hard not to.
Yeah.
Even if you've been here for a while, New York is never yours.
Yeah.
I can't find the lady picture, and now I'm convinced that I'm going crazy, but I do. This book might be a fun thing to look at. I produced this book, I guess 2 years ago, when I made a film about a fake ghost called Amenad, which means mother of fire. And I had done a lot of research on the supernatural and the history of exorcisms in the Emirates. And so this book was kind of part of the research that, oh, I found it. Yes. Okay, this is a page from my Lady coloring book, and it says, how nice this dress is. And this is my coloring from when I was a little kid.
Oh.
So clearly very talented. Great dress, great coloring. Oh, I have a question.
Awesome.
Do you want to read it or should I?
Yeah,
Simon, is it your call? Not too late.
She just discovered it again.
I know, it took me like 3 hours. Before I answer the question, maybe I'll just show you real quick. So like, there are a lot of, it's just like a zine that I made, and a lot of research images went into it. And so one of the things that I got to do was speak to an exorcist about demon possession. He told me that I had the most powerful demon he had ever seen.
Wow.
And he was actually really, he was like shaking, and he was like, you're not here to do research for your film. You're here because ... And then it was kind of alarming. And then there's like a picture of this haunted painting in our house that a ghost walked out of one time. So a lot of fun stuff in here. Anyway.
So did you say that you made that?
This book?
Yeah.
I made the book.
Okay, and then I got confused because you had the page from your coloring book.
I made this. It's called Arrival, and it is for sale somewhere, but I don't know where. So this is. Oh, thank you, Jad. You saw Amenad at the Hammer. Yeah, crazy. That was a fun thing to do in the pandemic.
I could read this question from Jad. How do American versus Emirati versus Arab audiences receive, interact with, or ask about your work differently? You mentioned this delicate balance of intentionality in the work, and I imagine some spaces and objects in your work might seem very ordinary or everyday to some viewers, but totally other to other viewers in another culture. Do you like to exhibit or talk about the work differently based on audience or location? It's a great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. Well, I think that my primary audience for the work is the people in it. So we will often have conversations about the ideas in the work, and I feel like if they have an understanding of it, then that's all that really matters to me. When I'm here, I certainly, like here in the US, I definitely find myself explaining some of the intricacies of the Emirates social norms a little bit more, whereas home, I feel like there are different codes that I can slip into where there's like a more immediate understanding of things like hanging out at home and what that culture entails. So it's something that I wrestle with a little bit. Like when I'm here, I think that I often get the assumption that my work is only ever taking place in the Emirates, but I'm really clear to sort of move the discourse towards ideas that are global, that certainly begin in a place that is I think it's a really good case study for a lot of these questions about capitalism and culture and politics and how all of these things are interconnected. But I don't think that my experience of it and my understanding of it is limited to there, and I don't want the work to feel that way either. So I am making more conscious efforts, I think, to really learn and adapt my work to different environments. So hopefully that is happening. So I think that hopefully answers your question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if there are any other questions, I guess so. If there are any other questions, now is a good time to ask.
Forever hold your peace.
Pardon?
Or forever hold your peace.
Or forever hold your peace, because I can ask one last question.
I'll never be speaking again.
Yeah, but I guess I can even ask you, like, is there anything sort of that you feel like maybe didn't that you would want to talk about that you didn't mention? Or I guess like my question was more about how, I mean, I'm really fascinated by Lady and sort of this, like, I didn't realize you had such a long sort of relationship with it. So
everyone should look at the episode names on Wikipedia because they're all really crazy and kind of poetic.
yeah.
Must go through the castle to talk to father, or like, it's just, they're all very I don't know, there's something kind of icky about them, about like how naive they are. Maybe I'll do, can I recommend some books?
Please.
That's always a fun thing to do.
Yes,
This is one of the best books of poetry ever,
mm.
Angela. It's so good. Everyone should get it. This is also a really good one too. I'm assigning a bunch of this book to my students, Mark Seeley, if anyone's interested in photography and the history of photography and colonialism.
Mm-hmm. You have one more question from Halam. How do you develop your relationship with the people you photograph? And how is that different when they are a stranger versus someone you know?
That's a great question. Also a beautiful name. Ahlam is one of my favorite names in the world. It means dreams. So how do so I basically, most of them are like very, very close friends. And so that immediately makes it easy because we have an understanding. And so Anud, who is the person in several of the photographs in the show, she's an artist. She's a brilliant artist. And she just gets it. We have a very close working relationship and understanding. And she, enjoys the process of coming up with a photograph. And I am forever grateful for that relationship. If I'm photographing a stranger, actually maybe a good one to talk about is the one of the two girls, Marwa braiding Marah's hair, which was in the slideshow in the mirror. So that photograph was taken, that was in Dearborn, Michigan. And I was there doing a residency with the Arab American National Museum and Wayne State University. And I was just kind of walking around on 4th of July. This is in 2019 when you could do things and go places. And these two sweet, actually it was three or four of them, sweet little girls walked up to me and were like, what do you do with that camera? Are you a photographer? Oh my God, we love BTS. Have you heard of BTS? Look at our Instagram accounts. And we started talking, and they were just so sweet and so curious in what I was doing. And so they were like, we want to take pictures with you. So I texted their mom and I asked if it was okay. And then I went to their house a couple days later and we made that photograph together. So that was a situation where I was like, I don't really, it became a relationship. Then I'm, still in touch with their mother, and have done family portraits for them. So they were strangers and we started talking, but it wasn't about making a photograph in that moment. It was about getting to know them and, also figuring out how my work could serve them. If I ever photograph strangers, like the one of the little girls dancing in blue, that was at a cultural event. So it was kind of, it was a situation where there was already, it was designed to be seen and filmed and photographed. So usually I'm pretty careful about how I approach strangers. I like to think, I hope that I'm fairly respectful of people's privacy. But if there's the opportunity to spend more time with somebody, then I'll and they're willing, then I'll take it.